Welcome back to the Product Data Master e-learning course for Module 2, What to Expect When Using the PDM Portal and Features of the PDM Homepage. My name is Jess, and I will be assisting you throughout this training module. Prior to watching this training, I highly recommend that you view Module 1 entitled Product Data Master PDM Introduction and Overview. In this module, I introduce you to our PDM portal, and I will discuss the two approaches that you can use to set up your products in the portal. In addition, I give you a preview of what's covered in the training for modules 2 through 4. Depending on you, this training module will take 18 minutes to complete. In this module, the following will be discussed and demonstrated: the features of the PDM portal homepage, contacting the PDM vendor support team for assistance, the features of the Smartsheet template, system requirements to access and run the PDM portal. This module will take approximately 18 minutes to complete. If you're ready to start, let's get started. Something that I forgot to tell you back in Module 1. As we go through each module and there's a helpful tip or important information that you need to be made aware of, I'll refer to it as a what you need to know about PDM moment. So listen for it. To access this e-learning training, you received your login credentials, username, and password during the vendor onboarding process, which gave you access to the vendor portal. Now let me show you how to access the PDM portal homepage. Once you access the vendor portal, click the Product Information tab located here. Next, on the Product Information page, click the PDM link. Briefly, let's get familiar with the PDM homepage and the 6 widgets that you see here. Next, you have your username. In addition to showing you that you've logged into the portal, no matter where you are in the portal, you can click this link, the homepage icon, or the PDM logo to return to the homepage of the portal. The last background processes icon, when clicked, opens a tab that lists all processes that were initiated by you, the vendor, for both imports and exports of the Smartsheet template. I'll discuss this tab in more detail later in Module 3. Let's take a look at the widgets. The first widget, Item Creation Steps, provides a quick reference with the basic instructions for setting up items using either the item creation form or the vendor item create method. The second widget, which is the item creation form, is used to select the appropriate EPH. Please remember that selecting the right EPH helps with the item setup process. Once the EPH, or EPHs, are selected, they're populated to the Smartsheet template that can be exported to your computer. Here's a what you need to know about PDM moment. When an EPH has previously been used, it will appear here on the Item Creation Form widget as a hyperlink. The EPH link can be used later to download a Smartsheet template that can be used for another item setup based on that EPH. Up to 5 previously used EPHs will appear on this widget, and depending on the amount of EPHs used, what appears in this area will change with the more recently used EPH. We'll discuss and demonstrate how the Item Creation Form widget works in more detail in Module 3. The third widget is Vendor Item Create. The 2 icons that you see here are called the Person View icons, which are selected by default. When using the PDM portal for item setup and item enhancement, you will always use the 2 Person View icon. The Vendor Item Create widget has 4 links. The first link, Item Create, is another method that can be used for item setup. Once you click the Item Create link, you will be brought to a page within the PDM portal where you can populate 10 mandatory attribute fields. Using this method gives you the option to continue working in the PDM portal, or you can download the items into a Smartsheet template to complete the remaining steps for the item setup process. Once a Smartsheet is completed with all required product details and has been validated and saved, the second link, Vendor Item Create Upload Item Create Form, will be used to upload the Smartsheet back to the PDM portal. The third link, Item Enrichment, is used to access items uploaded by means of the Item Creation Form method, or setup through the Vendor Item Create method. After the item is submitted, an item specialist and buyer will review the submission. If either party deems it necessary for corrections to be made to the submittal, he or she will reject the items back to you so that you can review and correct your entries. You will be notified via email that your items were rejected. To access the rejected items, you will use the Reject Item Vendor link. The numbers that you see here are associated with the number of items that are in this workstate. The fourth widget is Delete Workflow. Previously, when an item was deleted, it was permanently removed from the PDM system, which affected speed to market. To resolve this problem, we've developed the Delete Workflow. Now when items are deleted, they'll be moved into this workflow. From this workflow, you, the vendor, will be able to reinstate your deleted items. See Module 3 for a demonstration for how business processes work for this workflow. The fifth widget provides contact information for our support item setup team. You can contact this team regarding any issue or questions related to the PDM portal, item setup, PAT image submission, login issues, and other related issues that will prevent the item setup process. By the way, this team is awesome. You'll see. For the final widget, it will display important messages that include updates, scheduled maintenance, reminders, and tips. When using the PDM portal, remember to check this widget for important notices and/or updates. Oh, before I forget, on the far left side of the PDM homepage, you should see this tab with an arrow. You can click this tab to expand the product search panel. As an example, you need to set up an item in the PDM portal, and you're not sure if the UPC number was previously used. By the way, here's a what you need to know about PDM moment. The PDM portal checks for UPC uniqueness. If a UPC number that has already been established in the PDM portal is used again for another item, upon validating, an error message will inform you that the UPC number is in use. However, you can check within the PDM portal to see if the UPC number already exists. Next, I'll type a UPC number in the attribute search field area to see if the UPC number is already in use. Then, I'll hit the search button. PDM searches the portal for the UPC number. Let's start in the upper right corner of the home page. To log out of the PDM portal, click the logout icon. Note the SKU details page appears. The message tells us the SKU is already in the item create workflow. Therefore, the UPC number is in use in the PDM portal and cannot be used for another product. When viewing the SKU details page, you cannot edit anything here or on the other tabs. Please keep that in mind when using this view. Now that you know how a search can be performed with the product search panel, take the opportunity and perform other searches. And don't worry, you won't break anything. The Smartsheet template is another tool that you should become familiar with when working with the PDM portal. In the next section of this module, we'll cover the different features of the Smartsheet template that will help with the item setup process. This is a column header help text. When you hover your mouse or click a column header, which has a red triangle in the upper right-hand corner, you'll get the help text that gives a description for the field or what information should be placed in the field. When you use the item creation form or vendor item create method, each method gives access to the Smartsheet template. The Smartsheet template is an Excel workbook that has macros programmed to assist with the item setup process. When the Excel workbook is downloaded, which we'll do in Module 3, it is imperative that you hit the Enable Content button, which activates the macros. What are macros and why are they important for the Smartsheet template that you will be working with? Macros are Visual Basic Application codes, or VBA codes, that automate work in an application. They help us accomplish exactly what we need to do quickly with just a click of a button or input into a field. If the Enable Content button is not clicked, macros will be disabled, and this will affect the following. 1. The features of the Smartsheet will not be fully functional. 2. When you attempt to upload the Smartsheet back to the portal, you will receive the failed error message, which will prevent you from uploading your item to the PDM portal. Please remember that an important part of the item setup process includes uploading a completed Smartsheet back to PDM. Now that you understand the importance of enabling the macros for the Smartsheet template, let's briefly go over its features. At the very top left of the Smartsheet, you have the Validate Sheet, Next Era, Duplicate Row, and Delete Row buttons. Once your Smartsheet is completed, it needs to be validated or checked for errors. Validation is the process of checking the entries in the Smartsheet to make sure the required fields are completed and entered in the correct format. If there are errors, the sequence column, the cell with the sequence numbers, will be shaded in red. In addition, the attributes that have errors will also be shaded in red. After you validate the Smartsheet and errors are identified, you can use the Next Era button to navigate to those errors. The Duplicate Row button does exactly what it says. It duplicates an entire row. Say for instance you have 10 mugs and they are all the same except for the color. Opposed to entering that data into the Smartsheet 9 times, you can use the Duplicate Row button, then change the following for each item: sequence numbers, UPC numbers, and the color fields. The Delete Row button is an easy one. When using this button, only one row can be deleted at a time. For the sequence field, it's imperative that you establish a sequential numbering system similar to this example, with 3 digits. Since this is a mandatory field, items without sequence numbers will not upload into the PDM portal. There are 2 common errors that we come across when assisting our vendors. 1. The sequential numbering system is in the wrong format, and 2. The sequential numbering field is blank. Please make it a habit to establish a good sequential numbering system as seen here. Each column header has a filter button that can be used to filter down to the exact data that needs to be seen. The columns that are in blue and bold are mandatory fields. Information must be entered into these fields. The white columns are conditionally mandatory fields. One tool that's convenient for learning what fields are mandatory is the attribute guide located on the vendor portal under References. Notice how the guide is broken down: field name, explanation, help text, required field, conditionally mandatory rules, data type character length, and the tabs that are on the grid in the PDM portal, reference doc, and documents that are associated with certain attributes that are located on the partner portal. Hit the pause button and review the attribute guide. I'll be here when you're done. This guide lists the field names for a selected EPH, and depending on the EPH, these field names could change. In addition, know that there are over 1,000 EPH-specific attributes. Therefore, not all attributes will be available when using this guide. Within various fields, be aware of the 3 types of data entry that can be entered onto the Smartsheet template. Text. Straight text can be entered into fields. However, for date fields, the date format should be the full year, month, and day. List of values is a column where each row for that column has a drop-down of predefined values that you can select for that field. And finally, Value Selector. Within that column, each row has an ellipse icon that's used to open a dialog window that has a list of available values to select from. There are fields that are conditionally mandatory. Let me give you an example. You have 2 fields that are back-to-back. One field is mandatory and the other is conditionally mandatory. Based on what your answer is for the mandatory field, the conditionally mandatory field changes into a mandatory field. Please keep in mind that fields becoming mandatory are not obvious on the Smartsheet. To find out what fields are mandatory, conditional, or what data should be placed in the fields on the Smartsheet template, I would highly recommend that you review the attribute guide on the vendor portal here under the References category. Another area to give attention to when using the Smartsheet template is Bed Bath & Beyond's general guidelines for dimensions. Keep in mind that consumers want detail when looking to purchase a product, and part of that detail includes dimensions. Therefore, these fields shouldn't be omitted when you provide product details to the Smartsheet template. For items being submitted through the PDM portal, these are Bed Bath & Beyond's requirements for the needed dimensions. So, how would you measure this travel mug? These are required measurements for my product, which coincide with the fields on the Smartsheet template selected. Notice the required measurements are in inches for product depth, measuring from back to front. Product width, measuring from left to right. Product height, measuring from top to bottom. Don't you just love visuals? Just for emphasis, when providing dimensions for your product, remember these should be by product depth, measuring from front to back, product width, measuring from left to right, product height, measuring from top to bottom. When measuring your products, it should always be from the default front position as seen here. Other examples for measuring default front are, when a picture is hanging on a wall facing you, you will measure from the wall to the front edge of the picture frame. For a bed frame, you would measure the footboard side of the bed frame. The side of a coffee maker facing you while on a countertop. To get a better understanding for department and product-specific standards regarding default fronts, see the dimension guides located on the vendor portal located here under References. When setting up products for flat items such as rugs, placemats, or plates, measurements should be taken by product height, which is the largest measurement, product width, which is the second largest, product depth, which is the thickness of the item. Note the system requirements for the PDM portal, which I think will be very helpful for you. When accessing the PDM portal, you can use the following web browsers. If your operating system is Windows, make sure the version that you're using is one of the following. To work with certain features for item setup, you'll need Microsoft Excel, and it can be from any one of the following versions of the Office suite listed here. Please make sure when purchasing and/or you have the Office suite that is 32-bit. For our vendors who use Mac, we recommend the following operating system. When you're logged into the PDM portal and your computer is idle for 4 hours or more, you will be logged out of the portal. I don't think I've forgotten anything. In the following e-learning course for Module 3, I'll demonstrate how to set up a product from start to finish using the item creation form method. For this method, you will use the Smartsheet template. In preparation for Module 3, I would highly recommend you go to the Partner portal and review the EPH guide. In Module 3, I'll demonstrate how the EPH guide can be used when setting up your product. Do we need to take a break? Or are you ready to get started with Module 3? If you're ready to get started, click the link below and I'll see you in Module 3.